say, every day is for the thief, one day for the owner of the house. But ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, has reversed the role. It is now every day for the owner of the house. If you're involved in bribery, over-invoicing, or any shady deal, the day of reckoning has come. ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission is...
Welcome to Corruption Must Go, ICPC's weekly television program. I am your host, Hawa Sani Garba. According to the World Youth Report on the United Nations Department for Economic and Social Affairs, it says there are over 1.2 billion young people aged 15 to 24 years, accounting for 16% of the global population. Also, the preamble to United Nations Conventions Against Corruption expressed concern about the seriousness of problems and threats posed by corruption to the stability and security of societies, ethical values and justice jeopardizing sustainable development and the rule of law. You will agree with me that therefore, the active engagement of youth in the anti-corruption crusade is central to achieving a stable society as well as averting the worst threats and challenges to sustainable development. As the world marks the International Youth Day every 12th August, we shall look at the importance of youth as anti-corruption vanguards and how ICPC has been able to tap into this critical demographic resource in its anti-corruption campaign. We bring you details and more, but first, Ruth Awodi is standing by with stories on anti-corruption.
Thank you for staying with us. I am Ruth Awodi with Anti-Corruption Stories. The chairman of ICPC, Professor Bolaji Owasanye, SAN, has said that the private sector was responsible for over 60% illegal movement of funds from Africa to foreign countries. Professor Owasanye made this known during the visit of council members of the African Bar Association, AFBA, led by its president, Mr. Haniba Uwaifu, to the ICPC headquarters in Abuja recently. The ICPC boss stated that the perpetrators of illicit financial flows, IFFs, channel the funds through commercial activities enabled by the private sector.
The bulk of it is by the private sector. This is documented, this is proven. If you take illicit financial flows, for example, about 60% of what is taken away and stolen from Africa is by the private sector through commercial transactions, seemingly harmless commercial transactions that are put together by lawyers, by accountants, by auditors, by bankers. That's what is killing the continent. However, corruption by the public sector is debilitating because one single corruption by a notable person can set back the entire country for many years, especially because it is carried out by someone who controls partially the coercive powers of state. So I'm not justifying corruption by the government or public officials. I'm saying in terms of quantum, the data, the evidence on the ground is, in fact, to the effect that it is lower. It is lower. But it has greater impact. When somebody steals all the money meant for the schools, to build schools, to build hospitals, or to build roads, it affects everybody. It affects everybody. So I agree that we cannot ignore public sector corruption. It is critical. And under my watch, we try to focus on that. We try to look at more about public sector corruption. One of the first things that I did was to streamline what we would not take. So a lot of the petitions we get from the private sector, even though they have merit, it's not that they don't have merit. I tell myself, what should we devote our time and our resources to? It is public sector corruption, because when we correct that, it will have a positive impact on the private sector corruption. Private sector corruption will fester because the people to investigate and prosecute are already corrupt in the public sector, so it's mutually reinforcing. We need to try and break that catch-22 situation. So we spend a lot more, we put a lot more time, and we are always prioritizing requests by government or investigations on government over and above that of the private sector. Indeed, there are thresholds that we will not bother. We're not saying there's no corruption there. And sometimes if the person is very active and vibrant on social media, so we send a petition to ICPC, they are not doing anything, they receive my petition. As a rule, when we get your petition, we will acknowledge it. That acknowledgement does not mean that we're going to look at it. Okay? We will say the police is closer to you, report it to the police. The police is set up to do this sort of thing. ICPC was not set up as a specialized agency to look at petty crimes that have the implication or implications of corruption. That's not the reason. That's not the reason. What has happened over the course of social development is that all crimes that are investigated by a specialized agency were at one time or the other fully under the purview of the police. And even when new agencies are created, the police still has power to investigate those things. The laws never remove the powers of the police, never change the penal code or the criminal code. So take human trafficking. The police still have power to investigate human trafficking. Drugs, they have power to investigate drugs. Corruption, they have power to investigate corruption. Fraud, they have power to investigate fraud and all that. But because of systemic corruption, they were not doing those things well. So new agencies were created to deal with those issues.
Noting that corruption was debilitating in the country, Professor Owasonye explained that ICPC was focusing on public sector corruption because of its impact on the country and the private sector. He listed some of the progress made by the Commission to include de-emphasizing confession-based investigation, a world-class forensic lab, staff auditing, and capacity building. Earlier in his remarks, the AFBA president, Mr. Haniba Uwaifo, traced the problem in Africa to corruption, which, according to him, has led to the underdevelopment of the continent. He stressed that the continent cannot grow unless corruption was uprooted, adding that the world is worried about the level of corruption in Africa. Uwaifo lamented that public sector corruption by government officials has held the country back from achieving its great potential.
The biggest problem we have in the continent that creates all the unending conflict can be traced to corruption. And it has become so inimical and destructive that the continent cannot grow unless it is deeply touched and dealt with. How we are going to do this is a serious question of by commentators all over the world, not Africans alone. Commentators outside the continent are worried about the amount of crass corruption going on in the continent and how to root it out or even minimize it. It looks like the more you kill this head, the more it raises its head in other ways. And most of these corrupt practices are, what is more worrisome about it is that they are perpetrated by government officials. And when government officials perpetrate corruption, the country doesn't grow, the economy doesn't grow. We just become like Baba's chair, the chair of the Baba, rolling around. We achieve nothing. No wonder our own country is swimming in all kinds of issues that have largely been unresolved. Corruption is at the root of election malpractices. Corruption is at the root of banditry and all these sort of things we are seeing all over the place. Corruption is at the root of stealing ballot boxes and agitations that we see today that is tearing everywhere apart. So, Mr. Chairman, I think that yours and that of your staff and those who work with you is an onerous task, but not insurmountable. Because from our own judgment, after our own meetings, several meetings, our own judgment on the ICP is that you have performed creditably in the midst of the situation we find ourselves. But there's still room for improvement.
He also highlighted some of the corrupt practices perpetrated by government officials to include election malpractices, banditry, and influencing the employment of lackeys into anti-corruption agencies in order to aid their corrupt practices. That will be all on this segment. Corruption Must Go continues. Stay with us.
If you are just tuning in, this is Corruption Must Go. The scourge of corruption takes its toll on all segments of the population, sparing none, including the youth. It is indisputable that their being the most active demographic group places them in a prime position to make a great impact in the anti-corruption efforts. No wonder, in the composition of its board members, ICPC Act 2000 takes into cognizance the importance of having a youth representative not more than 30 years at the time of appointment. We spoke to Honorable Hannatu Muhammad, a member representing the youth on the Commission's board. Let's hear what she has to say on why the youth should be at the forefront of the anti-corruption war.
First, I would like to answer that with why not? Why shouldn't they be at the forefront of the fight against corruption? I mean, we know that they see the youth are the future of tomorrow, or the leaders of tomorrow. And we also know that corruption robs the future. So if the youth do not fight for their future, who else will? I mean, basically, I think that's more than reason enough for the youth to actually be at the forefront in the fight against corruption. They have a lot of energy, and then they can actually deploy that energy in the fight against corruption to ensure that there's actually a better future. And if you actually look at it, most of the CSOs that are, fighting, well, that are inclined towards anti-corruption, you find that most of them are led by youth, and they're actually doing a really good job about it. So they're more capable, if I may say so myself, to actually be in the fight against corruption and at the forefront at that. As you know, the mandate of the Commission includes public enlightenment as well as education, also with prosecution and enforcement. So on the public enlightenment and education front, I have managed to engage with a lot of civil society organizations whose focus is anti-corruption, fight against corruption. And then, to be honest, we have built quite a relationship, and they have engaged more with the Commission to actually see that fall through.
Welcome back. You are still watching Corruption Must Go. Over the years, ICPC has come up with various initiatives such as students' anti-corruption clubs in secondary schools, anti-corruption vanguard in tertiary institutions, NYSC CDS groups, and the National Anti-Corruption Volunteer Corps to involve them in the anti-corruption war. The Commission has also introduced values-based education in the form of the National Values Curriculum, intended to imbue in the youth the culture of integrity, honesty, and transparency in their formative age. Mr. Umfon Ummo of our Public Enlightenment and Education Department tells us more.
Over the years, when the Commission came into being, as far back as 2000, it noticed that there was an ethical gap among the youths. And this ethical gap was so bad that there was need for a national rebirth. So ICPC decided to use one of the three core mandates given to the Commission, which is education and mobilization mandate, to make sure that the youths are being brought into the fight against corruption. This was based on the reason that youth form the vibrant part of the population. So ICPC decided to capture that vibrant population and to bring them into the fight against corruption. And to do this, ICPC needed to create platforms for them to bring them in the fight against corruption. And one of those platforms are, one, the National Values Curriculum, which was designed in 2003 to make sure that these values were being taught in school to produce youths that will learn to say no to corruption. This values curriculum was first taught in basic 1 to 9, that is primary 1 to junior secondary 3. Later on, it was being extended to post-basic, which is SS1 to SS3. But presently, it has been extended to colleges of education and polytechnics, where they are being infused in subjects that are being taught in school. That is one of the strategies that Commission use to train these youth, to train others in the fight against corruption. Another platform is the platform of student anti-corruption clubs that we open in secondary schools all over Nigeria. We open these clubs to also train these children to stay away from corruption. We make sure that we mobilize them and enlist them in these clubs. Having exposed them at the primary and post-basic levels, at tertiary level, when they become mature, we now go to mobilize them. At this stage, they can be able to distinguish between what is right and what is wrong. So we train them at the Vanguard to train other students on campus to stay away from social vices. When they graduate from the university, we follow them to their NYSC projects. So during the NYSC orientation camps, we go to camps to also remind them on the need for them to shy away from what is bad and to join us in the fight against corruption. And throughout their 1 year community development service, we work with them. We deploy them for rallies. We give them IEC materials to go out to educate others at the grassroots level against the vices, social vices.
My name is Jamiu Olamide Farouk, and I'm a proud student of Government Secondary School, Kubwa. And I would like to talk to everyone about a child's cry on corruption. Nigeria, my country. Come to think about it. Would there ever be a time when only great minds will be enthroned as our leaders? A time when corruption is killed and transparency becomes a friend of all. A time when the bridge that exists between the ruler and the ruled are no more. A time when the rope of purity, noise of kidnapping, armed robbery, money laundering, examination malpractices, Fulani headsmen and farmers clash, Boko Haram abducting our young girls and depriving them from going to school and becoming what they want to be, a place from our hearts. You see, sometimes people often ask me, why are you always so sad? I tell them I don't know, and truly I don't really know. I wake up every day and when I see the high rate of corruption in our nation, Nigeria, I feel so sad, unsettled, depressed, like I was so lucky to be given birth to in this nation. I'm afraid of this nation. I'm afraid of putting my guard down for the fear that I'll be judged for something I cannot control. I'm afraid that one day someone will wake me up and tell me, hey, you're from Congo Brazzaville. Come to think about it. Do you think I'd like to watch this nation fail? Do you really think I'd like to watch this nation fall in all of self, hate, shame and reproach? This is just a cry of a Nigerian child. Because there's a proverb that says, mother and motherland are greater than heaven. Therefore, taking this saying in mind, let's put in more effort not to make this heaven even more heavenly. As a student, I have learned of Nigeria's backwardness and its underlying factors. This imposes as a difficult challenge if I am to promote my country. But as long as I stand firm and take my mind off the negative factors, I can be successful, yes, in completing my duties. See, many people in Nigeria keep asking myself this question, why? Because of their poor condition and settlement. I understand and believe that I should not even think of migrating to foreign countries. But help to make Nigeria a destination country for others. To achieve this, I must work hard. Not only me, we all must work hard. For the previous generation made Nigeria a good place for us to call home. And today, it is my generation's turn to make it even more better for the future generation to live in. That being said, I am not capable of doing it alone. Hence, everyone should take their part in it. I will try to help Nigeria in any way I can. For being a Nigerian, I must work hard, which hopefully one day will be beneficial to my motherland. See, slowly but surely, Nigeria will shine as the brightest star. Why? because I played my path together with all my fellow citizens living in every nook and corner of Nigeria, giving it everything we had to offer to make our nation proud of us. We should always remember, we should never ever forget that the future started yesterday. We've got to hurry up. We need to hurry up, because I'm telling you, we are already late. This is a Christ child about corruption.
Welcome back from that insightful interview, and hope you enjoyed that captivating performance by a student from one of our secondary school's anti-corruption clubs. We welcome more of such performances. Still, as part of such effort by ICPC to engage the youth in its anti-corruption drive, more tertiary institutions across the country are daily being harnessed into the anti-corruption vanguard by the Commission. Only recently, Bayes University in Abuja joined other institutions in this regard to inaugurate students into its anti-corruption vanguard. Let's hear their impression of being anti-corruption agents.
Being an anti-corruption vanguard, we intend to raise awareness and essentially encourage students, raise awareness for anti-corruption, raise awareness for values, the need to adopt these values, the benefits it has, the disadvantages of anti-corruption, the remedies for corruption in the institution. So essentially, we intend to imbibe these values in students, to let them know the disadvantages and corruption has, and we would also provide remedies for these corrupt practices. Also, we also intend to implement some disciplinary measures in order to make people to abstain from adopting anti-corrupt habits. You can't be practicing corruption and expect something positive to happen to you in return. So already, actually, we are already trying to recruit students to the vanguard, trying to let them know essentially what our mission, our vision. We've been doing that bit by bit, spreading even beyond the faculty. We intend to do way more than that. We're creating awareness and promoting these values, because this is where everything starts from. So to students, to family members, to relatives, people outside the school, essentially everybody, every Nigerian, every person, we're trying to let them know that this is the way to go, because at the end of the day, these negative practices don't pay off. There's no benefit, there's no advantage whatsoever. It doesn't help even the people who are essentially trying to say that, okay, if you can't fight it, okay, just go ahead, just do it, because at the end of the day, what's the point? So yeah, we don't subscribe to that cliche at all, because it has no benefits, and we would still, in spite of such cliches, we still intend to work against corruption and uphold the values and carry out our mission.
In a university like this, in our environment, as the Vice President of the Anti-Corruption Vanguard, I feel like my job is to work hand in hand with the President and other executives in my team to be able to recruit other students as well, and make sure that all of us are on the path to fight corruption. And my inspiration comes from other Western countries. I see how things are being implemented. I see how they're developing as a nation. But because of this particular bane, something that is eating into our society, which is corruption, Nigeria is not able to live a certain level, where instead of progressing, we're regressing, which is a bad thing. So I draw my inspiration from other Western countries, and how every country has corruption, but the way they are able to curb it, the way they're able to curtail it and curve it, that's where I draw my inspiration from. And I feel like if I carry that inspiration, I'll be able to start from somewhere, start from the grassroots level, which is my school. And if I'm able to make a difference to the vanguard in my school, then my school can also, other students can also progress, and we can end up changing Nigeria for good.
Combating corruption from the bigger perspective may look so cumbersome, but when you realize that each person in this institution is part of a family, so they can start from their families, and then there is a ripple effect where it gets to spread. So that's how we start out. We make them know the damage of corruption as a cancer, introduce it to them again and again. The mere mention of this subject and addressing it over and over and over again, it's is a start. That's the truth, making people realize that this is an evil and you have a role to play. Not just that this is an evil, but then you have a role to play in combating the subject, beginning from the smallest place. Because corruption, when you tell people about combating corruption, they say, I can't stop it from the those in politics and all that. No, it's your family, it's your environment, it's how you address the subject. So we bring it down, we break it down, we break the subject of combating it down to the point where they can see how they participate.
It is obvious that Nigerian youths have the zeal and the passion to make a significant impact in this fight against corruption. ICPC, on its own part, cannot be said to have been found wanting in taking advantage of this all-important segment of the population in its effort to achieve its mandate of combating corruption. The Commission is therefore urging every youth to do more in holding leaders accountable, to always act with integrity and report all acts of corruption to ICPC. Watch out for another interesting edition, 3:30 p.m. every Wednesday. That's our package for this week. Bye for now.